Many thanks to PPA for sponsoring this week's video. ND filters are expensive and honestly, they're kind of annoying to deal with. You've got to carry them and clean them and swap them, and half the time they get in the way more than they actually help. But what if I told you you don't really need them to shoot stunning long exposure photographs? Today I'm going to show you exactly how I capture silky smooth water and dramatic motion blur without touching a single filter. Now, there's a number of reasons to go filter free. Maybe you're just starting out and you don't want to drop hundreds of dollars on ND filters. They're expensive. Maybe you constantly forget them at home, just like I do. Or maybe you just want a simpler and lighter setup when you're out exploring. Now, to be clear, I'm not anti-filter at all. In fact, I consistently use a polarizer when I remember to bring it. It's the one filter whose effects cannot be replicated in post. Cutting glare off of wet rocks and reducing reflections on water, those are things you simply can't fake in Lightroom or Photoshop. And for me, a polarizer is essential, but ND filters, on the other hand, not always. But with the right conditions and a bit of camera know-how, you can capture stunning long exposure images without ever reaching for a single filter. This is a very common story for me. I just got back from Patagonia, where I was running my fall workshop there. Absolutely incredible time. We had taken the group to this beautiful waterfall on the Argentina side of Patagonia. Absolutely gorgeous, peak fall color, and anyone who watches this channel knows that I love fall and I love moving water. It is literally the perfect photographic scenario for me. So obviously I'm very, very excited, as you can tell by me just talking about it, but we get the group there, we get everybody set up, everyone's dialed in, everyone's focused, everyone is super excited. And I get a setup going as well, and I get everything dialed in. I had this exact setup, Nikon Z8 and the 24-120. Get everything perfected with the composition. And of course, I want to show some movement in this waterfall. It's one of the most beautiful aspects of this scene is this water moving through it. And I go ahead and get everything dialed in, like I just mentioned, and I only want to slow down the shutter speed a little bit. So I reach for my ND3, three-stop ND filter, which I believe is this one right here. And I'd start to look for my step-up rings. This is where I fail all the time. I don't really forget to bring the filters. It's these step-up rings. This is what is my big demise here. So sometimes I'll bring my step-up rings, but usually I'll forget them altogether, or I just forget to bring the specific one that I need. And sure enough, this was I believe a 77 millimeter filter size and thread size, and I forgot to bring the step-up ring for it, and that is usually what happens to me. So I had no way to actually slow down this shutter speed. But as you can see, this is the image right here, a slightly edited raw file. But as you can see, I was still able to capture a ton of beautiful motion in this water all through here. The image is still perfectly sharp, but as you can see, just very nice motion in this water, very, dynamic water movement here, and it absolutely makes the photograph. Whenever you use a longer exposure with water, it just creates a very ethereal and a very calming, very quiet type of a photograph, which really lends itself well for these kind of scenes right here. So how does one accomplish this? First off, it's not a special trick that only a select few high-end cameras can do. Literally every camera can do this. It's all about using natural light and dialing in the right camera settings and letting your shutter do the heavy lifting. Now, the key to long exposures without filters is low light. So early morning, late evening, twilight, or overcast skies, these are your best friends. Shooting in low light conditions, it allows you to stretch your shutter speed naturally without overexposing the image. It is possible in bright conditions, and I'll show you those results in just a minute here. But however, that can be a bit tougher. So one of the most important things to understand with this technique, being able to shoot long exposures without filters, is to understanding that ND filters, all ND filters, are nothing more than just sunglasses for your camera. Whoops. If you think about it, sunglasses, the entire purpose of sunglasses is literally to protect your eyes from sunlight, or stated differently, it is to reduce the amount of sunlight that is coming into your eyes. And an ND filter is the exact same thing, except it is supposed to stop the amount of light that is coming into your camera or coming into your sensor. It's like there's different strengths of sunglasses. Some sunglasses are stronger than other sunglasses. And just like ND filters, there's no difference. These ND filters are different strengths. So an ND3, or I should say a 3-stop ND filter, stops a certain amount of light. A 6-stop ND filter stops even more light. A 10-stop ND filter stops even more light than that. You can stack these types of filters on top of one another, but at the end of the day, sunglasses and ND filters are exactly the same. Sunglasses stop the amount of light coming into your eyes, where ND filters stop the amount of light that are coming into your camera. That is very, very important. Now, before I jump right into the 5 steps required in order to shoot long exposures without filters, I do just want to say a big thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Professional Photographers of America, or PPA for short. Now, I know I've mentioned this on quite a few occasions over the years, but one of the top reasons why I'm a member of PPA is their straightforward approach to insuring camera gear. They offer up to $15,000 worth of coverage with a $50 deductible for repairs and a $350 deductible for full replacement of equipment loss. This gives me the peace of mind knowing my gear is protected not only from damage, but also theft or any other unforeseen event that may occur. And with a PPA membership, you'll also receive data loss negligence and malpractice protection with PPA's indemnification trust, along with professional development tools designed to help you grow your skills with mentorship programs and even portfolio reviews. So join a community of over 35,000 photographers and check out the link in the description below for a special discount on your PPA membership today. So as far as how to do this trick, or I don't even want to call it a trick, it's really just a technique. There's 5 steps, and I'll break it down each step at a time. So the very first thing you do, so if you get on location and you forgot your filters or you forgot your step-up rings, whatever the case is, you're in a scenario where you cannot add an ND filter to your camera, to the end of your lens. What do? The very first thing, and perhaps one of the most important parts of this, is to make sure that you put your camera in manual mode. You have to be able to control all 3 aspects of the exposure triangle. You do not want your camera to control any of it. You don't want your camera to make any decisions related to your exposure. So by putting your camera in manual mode, you must control the aperture, you must control your ISO, and you must control your shutter speed. Very, very important. If you do not put your camera in manual mode, this technique will not work. So once your camera's in manual mode, the second thing you want to do is you want to enable some kind of shutter delay. I usually will use a 2-second shutter delay, and the reason why is because if you don't have a shutter delay, the moment you press that shutter button, your camera more than likely will start taking that exposure. And then when you let go of the shutter button, you're going to introduce a little bit of camera shake in the camera itself, which is going to make your longer exposure come out a little bit softer, a little bit blurry. So by enabling a shutter delay, you can press the shutter button, move your hands away, let your camera stabilize, and then the camera will go ahead and take the exposure. Whether you dial in a 2-second or 5-second or 10-second shutter delay, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you have some kind of shutter delay enabled, that is going to be the second thing that you want to do. Now, the third thing you want to do is you want to set your camera to the lowest possible ISO level that your camera will go, or that's base ISO. This is usually ISO 100 or maybe ISO 64. My Nikon Z8 actually, I just recently found out, honestly, it goes down to ISO 32, which I was not quite aware of, but that's fantastic. But you want to make sure that you set your ISO level to as low of an ISO level as your camera can go. The fourth thing here is you want to go ahead and dial in a narrow aperture. Remember, your aperture is basically a big circle. So this, for instance, would be f4. This, for instance, would be like f16. So that aperture gets smaller and smaller. So by dialing in f16, that's naturally stopping the amount of light. So if you have f4, very wide aperture, that's obviously going to let in much more light into the sensor versus f16, which is letting in much less light into the sensor. So I usually will start at f16 and work your way higher if you need to. So once your camera is in manual mode, you have a 2-second shutter delay, you have your ISO at its base ISO on your camera, low as possible, and then you have your aperture set at, say, f16 or maybe f18 or maybe even higher. You have now stopped a lot of light coming into your camera, and you've also reduced this ISO sensitivity of your camera as well. So from here, you have the ability to kind of drag out that shutter speed a little bit. Here's a couple instances of this, where this is another waterfall in Patagonia. As you can see right through here, beautiful motion blur all throughout this waterfall right here, which looks very, very nice. And if I hit the shortcut key I, you can see this the camera settings. This was shot at f18, ISO 32 at 1/8 of a second. Now, I mentioned earlier about shooting in brighter conditions. You can do this, but as you can imagine, the brighter it is, the less you'll be able to slow down your shutter speed. You can kind of tell as I toggle back and forth in these images that the sun did come through. It's really illuminating this waterfall here. And now I increased the aperture to f22. So I normally would not recommend doing that because of diffraction. You know, your lens is not going to be at its sharpest at f/22. It's going to be suffering from diffraction. It's going to be a little bit softer, but I was still able to get a 1/5 of a second here. And as you can see, still plenty of beautiful motion blur in this photograph. And if I zoom in, you know, it's not insanely sharp. You know, f/11 or f/8 on this lens is substantially sharper than f/22. But when you look at it zoomed out like this, like a normal person does, the only people that zoom into photographs are photographers, you and I. But when you look at it at face value like this, it looks plenty sharp. So you can definitely use f/22 or even higher if you're in a pinch, if you are photographing in brighter conditions and you don't have the ability to stop even more light with an ND filter. That is a real quick but insanely helpful technique to just kind of have in your back pocket in case the inevitable happens and you forget your filters or you forget your step-up rings and you have no way to put an ND filter on the end of your camera. You can rest assured that you do have the ability to naturally stop a little bit of light just by understanding the way the camera settings work and understanding how your camera works. Ideally, in this scenario right here, like this photograph right here, it was captured at 3 p.m., I believe, and it wasn't, it was bright out, but it wasn't blasting light. This is a pretty good scenario for this technique because the more dim the light is or overcast days, the slower you're gonna be able to drag out that shutter speed even more. So I do hope that that was helpful. It was something that came up on my workshop about how do you shoot long exposures if you don't have filters, because every workshop I teach, inevitably either myself or some of the attendees either maybe didn't bring a certain filter they want to use, or they didn't bring the specific step-up ring thread size for the lens they want to use, whatever the case may be. It is a good technique to understand how to do, and I wanted to share it with you today. So if you have any questions about anything covered here, please leave those in the comments section below, and I will do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And and be sure to check out the link in the description below for your special discount on a PPA membership. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. If you did enjoy and found some value in this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.